And I am very glad to have Alesia with us this month. For those of you who I have not met, my name is Timothy Campbell. I work here with Boys Town and work as closely as I can with some of our trainers. Alesia, for the most part of the summer and fall, has been out and doing her job. So that's what we love about that. But Alesia, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your background, but give us your elevator pitch on who you are.
Okay. Thank you so much, Tim. Again, my name is Alesia Montgomery, and I've been working for Boys Town for quite a long time. Let's put it like that. I started working for Father Flanagan High School, which is an alternative school that was located in inner city Omaha. And for the last about 25 years, I've traveled around the country training educators and parents on the Boys Town education model. And I am so happy to be here today.
Awesome. Thank you. And we're glad to have you. As we try to come up with, people to talk to and names that we want to, talk to throughout these webinars, we were very excited to have Alesia. And I think everybody else, the attendees, will appreciate it as well. So before we get started, and I'll introduce the topic here in a minute, but just a couple of house rules. If you have a question, go ahead and raise your hand in the chat, and we'll address you. You can also write your chat in directly to us, and we will address those as we go. So feel free to ask questions or give input. If you have a thought, something that maybe Alesia says that triggers, like, hey, we do this in our classroom or at our setting, and it works for us, go ahead and throw that in there. We'd like to engage with that. Yeah. So with that being said, again, as we approach December, we see, obviously we've had school going on for the last few months. We've got a rhythm going. Our classrooms are functioning as best as we can get them. And now all of a sudden we're faced with some winter breaks, and we have quite a few coming up. So today we want to talk about how do we prepare for these winter breaks and then addressing some learning loss. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Alesia. And let's talk about this.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Tim. What I want to first say, I was thinking about this topic. This is a really important topic, especially when your students are getting ready to leave for Christmas break and they'll be coming back after the new year. There's a lot of things that could happen, both positively and negatively. And we're going to talk about those things and see what we can do to try to mitigate some of the negative things. First of all, as you know, you may have heard of the acronym SAD, and that's seasonal affective disorder. Basically, it's like in this wintertime, it gets dark real early. And I don't know about you, but I'm telling you, when 5:30 start rolling around, 6 o'clock, I try to head home as soon as I can, because I, for one, do not like to drive in the dark. And think about your students. Sometimes just the weather, just the darkness, the gloominess can have an effect on some of your students. And they're going to be out for the winter break. And some kids are not affected by that, but some are. And I'm saying students, but also adults too. So that SAD disorder would be part of the problem that could take place during the winter break. And on top of that, there's lots of other things that happen that we can talk about. Kids not having a consistent meal. Because as you know, at school, sometimes that's the only place where they are sure of having breakfast and lunch. And when they go home, who knows what happens? So pile that on along with other stuff. So we want to talk about that. And I really want to specifically give you some tips that will help you to address some of the things and at least mitigate some of the things that happen during the winter break. So Tim, I don't know if it was something specifically you want me to start with. I can just start if you want me to.
Well, I'm going to let you just start, but yeah. So okay. First of all, I've not heard of the SAD acronym, so that's interesting, and it does make sense. I know at least here in our part of the country, sunset was 4:56 last night. That's insane. Yeah. So just wild. But yeah, go ahead and let's get started on some of that you mentioned there, Alesia.
Okay, awesome. I think the secret sauce to most of the things we do is being proactive. And as educators, you guys know that. I always say if you're more proactive, you're going to be less reactive. So the more things we can talk to our students about ahead of time, it's going to really make a big difference. So if I have students and I know in the next 2 weeks they're getting ready to go on winter break, here are some things I would like to do. I would probably do. I'm going to go ahead and form a to-do list. I would sit with my students and say, okay, let's brainstorm some things that we can do during the break. And some of the things might be, because I want them to be involved with that, because it needs to be some things that they want to do, and it will keep them busy, and it may help them to stop thinking about the negative stuff. If they like to ice skate, for instance, that might be an activity they can write down and say, not that they have to do all of these things, but it's a menu. I don't know about you guys, but I have to write things down. Like, here's my to-do list. Check, check, check. I might not check it all off. But ice skating, I was thinking about some things. What could they do? Or maybe I can talk to them about reading a good book. Or, with the virtual world and the Zoom world happening now with the pandemic, and even though that's died down some, maybe some of the students might want to get with a bunch of friends and say, either come over to my house and let's talk about a good book or good movie, or why don't we virtually get on Zoom and talk about it? So have a little book club or something to keep them engaged, something to keep them busy. And another good thing about that, we're talking about learning loss. The more they read and the more they engage, it's going to really help them mentally when they get back in January. We want them to do some things that's educational. And a good book is always a good thing. It keeps your mind going. It's a really good thing to do. Another thing I thought about they can do is maybe a movie night. I don't know, and talk about those things. Again, keeping your mind engaged, keeping you going. Some things I like to do, and I've done with my daughter when she was younger, we would have like, okay, tonight we're going to bake cookies. We're going to do some things. You want to bring a friend over, have a friend come over. Let's do a cookie night, were you saying something, Tim? I thought I heard something.
No, I was agreeing with that. Couple of my boys, they like cooking, so we do cookie nights all the time.
Yeah. That's a lot of fun. Family or friends do things. So I guess what I'm saying is, so we start thinking of ahead, because some kids are like, oh, I don't know what to do. Oh, winter time is coming. And some kids are like, yay, I'm getting out of school. But you got some school kids that are emotionally like, oh, I don't know what to do. So this will give everybody some things to do. And when they hear other kids come up with ideas, yes, let me write this down. I want to do that too. Game night. Let me tell you about game night. Last year, I had some surgery. I'll just disclose that. And I was at home, and it was during the pandemic time. And I was feeling like emotionally like spent, like, oh, I'm bored. What do I do? Think about your students. They think about the same thing. I'm bored. What am I going to do? So I had a few friends. I invited them over for game night. Everybody brought a different game over. I had games. I had some refreshments. We had the best time. So game night could be great. That's something you can do even when it's dark outside. It doesn't matter. You can have a good time, put some music on. And these are just some things to do. So I just wanted to mention, have a to-do list, be proactive, talk to your students, let them talk amongst themselves and take some notes. That way they have a game plan. Some kids may already have a plan, but what about the ones that don't? Sometimes when we share together, it really helps those that don't have plans, that say, I'm going to be bored during the break, I don't have friends. It just gives them an action plan. So that's one of the things I wanted to talk to you about. I don't know if anybody had any questions or comments before I went over to the next things, because I have other ideas too. But I just wanted to throw that out. Let me just ask a question in the chat box. If you don't mind, guys, what are some other suggestions that you would mention to your students of some things that they can do? Maybe brainstorm some things they can do over the winter break. So if you got an idea, go ahead and put it in the chat box. I would love to hear if you have something different. I'll give you a minute to think about it.
I like that. And I do like that you started off with that, because it also, we always talk about it as far as like, even when with Boys Town and when we're in schools, we talk about getting to know your students, and
yeah,
so this is just another tool as well. Instead of it coming from the person at the front of the classroom saying, hey, you guys should do this or do this over winter breaks, it's the students themselves coming up with the ideas. And so it's personal to what they like. And so it's just another way also to get to know your student. Maybe you didn't know that student liked cooking or liked ice skating.
Yeah.
We do have a couple of things in the chats here.
Okay.
Baking recipes.
Yes.
So, and that would be a neat thing too, as the supposedly adult in the room, right? If you bring a couple of your own baking, say, hey, I make these, and so maybe sharing those with your students, but that'd be great.
That'd be awesome.
And then Tiffany mentioned some arts and crafts.
Yes.
So Cindy, so talk a little bit, Alicia, about that. So some arts and crafts, what would that look like? Because some students, may not have access to this stuff while they're at break. So is this something that we want to package for them or give them, or what is?
We could, and we can work smarter, not harder. We can have simple things like, especially if it's a little teeny weeny kids, we can take something as simple as a Christmas coloring book from the dollar store, make some copies or cut some things out, give them a box of crayons, give them some things, maybe get some little books and have them do that. And maybe they can get together and have maybe a contest. Hey, let's see who can color the best and we can win a prize, or something that does not involve a whole lot of things. And see and I would always ask them, what do you like to do? And you will be amazed at some of the things they will come up with, and they may have better answers than you. So involve them, because one thing, we give them things to do and they're not interested in it. That's not good. Always ask, what do you like to do? But little kids, I know they like coloring. I see some other things. Write a letter.
I was going to say, Ron over here is thinking like an educator. I like that. So he says for recipes, ask them to double the recipe and then have them figure out the measurements. I like that. That's creative, Ron.
Yeah.
And then I'll let Alicia go ahead and read the next one there. What is that one?
Oh, let me see. Can't bring it up. It popped up, but you might want to read it for me if you don't mind.
I'll read it. It says, write a letter to themselves to highlight their achievements during the school year. So that's creative. I like that. So writing a letter to themselves, any growth that they experienced over this past semester, what challenges they may have encountered and how they coped with them. What kind of support they need from the school. Man, this is great. So thank you. Thank you.
Was that Ron?
This was, who was this? This was Bernice.
Okay, great, Bernice. You know what? Because I'm going to talk a little bit about that later, about saying like maybe journaling the things you did over the winter, the winter break. And so when you get back, you can share out with the whole classroom. Hey, these are the things I did. And also, speaking of cooking things, I know one thing they can do, if they like to bake cookies, I'm back to cookies again, maybe they can make different types of cookies and everybody get together and they share. You know how you bring an empty container and I make a whole bunch of peanut butter cookies, somebody else make a bunch of raisin cookies or oatmeal cookies, and we put it all together. Have them go shopping and compare something. I think I saw.
Yeah, Vivian wrote having a reading challenge with a reward. Doesn't necessarily have to cost money, but a reading challenge. And then she said she likes the idea of crafting as well. Ron put back in there, again, having them go to a store, maybe and stick to a budget and have to compare prices. So again, I like those challenges. That's really good. That's really good.
I love it, guys. You guys are really thinking. Here's the secret. The secret is just thinking ahead of time. We know when the kids are getting out, plan a month in advance and start thinking about these things and come up with a list. You might even have a list of things listed and have them add to that list. Have them take a picture of it or write some things down and get a plan. So they would go like, "Ooh, I got a purpose. This is some things I can do." So that's great. Awesome. Thanks for sharing it, because I have some other ideas I want to share, but go ahead, Tim. What were you going to say?
No, I was just, again, I want you to stick to this topic as long as you want to, but again, as we're thinking, we're 3 weeks really away from breaks starting here.
Right.
And so not only being proactive on, some activities that we can do for the students, but starting to think, in our classrooms, we try to do our best to have some sort of control and some sort of consistency. And with the Boys Town model, we really push for that consistency. But now our students are going home where they lack that consistency maybe, or it's just a different type of consistency. So what are some things that we can teach our students prior to the winter break to really help them through those 3 weeks where they're going to be at home?
I'm glad you asked that question. That's a valid question. One of the things we do, and the folks that have taken the Boys Town training may know what I'm talking about, we do a planned teaching lesson at a neutral time. Because remember, we want to be 3 or 4 steps ahead of our students. We know
Mm.
they're going to be on winter break, so we want to say, okay, they're not going to be with us. So what can I teach them that they can use when they're away from us? Here's some things I thought about. We want to teach some social skills. And by the way, guys, we have a book at Boys Town at the Boys Town Press called Teaching Social Skills to Youth. And I think it has 193 different skills, social skills, that you, if you haven't gotten that book, you might want to pick it up. And I'm going to share some ideas of some things that you can proactively teach. Somebody's saying, oh, okay, Jackson is writing some things there. Awesome. So some of your students may have some emotional concerns. They're saying, oh my goodness, winter break is coming. I don't have friends. I might be bored. I don't know what to do. And I thought about some skills that you can actually teach your students. And here they are. One is dealing with boredom. Some kids, I know you guys got kids that say, I'm bored, I'm bored. Well, there's a social skill called how to deal with boredom. And if you look in that book, it will give you some specific steps to proactively teach all of your students so they'll know how to deal with it when they're away from you. Let them write it down, put it on a board, and they can write the steps down, and I would review it, and I would have them practice that. Practice, okay, pretend you're at home, there's nothing to do, you feel really bored, and I would go through the steps of how to deal with boredom and have them practice it. Another step would be how to control emotions. If you have a student that is really emotional and sad or upset or whatever this situation might be, we have a specific social skill, how to deal with emotions. Because when they're with you in the classroom, you can talk to them with that. What about when they're not with you? So that's what I would like to be proactive. And and I might have specific kids in mind. I'm thinking, okay, Joy, Johnny, Mary, so and so, but I'm going to teach it to the whole class, how to deal with, how to control your emotions. And another thing I would do, we talked about some self-control strategies. Because I think about my students, what if they're playing basketball in the gym during winter break? Another kid jerks the ball away from that student, and the kid is upset. They're emotional. You took the ball away from me. And so instead of having a meltdown, if I can teach them how to control your emotions and teach them some strategies, that's going to help them be successful. And it might be something like taking some deep breaths, stepping back for a minute, count to 10 backwards, maybe doing some self-talk saying, I'm okay, I'm going to be all right. Some of those things. It's really setting our students up for success. Because remember, I said before, they're not going to be with us 24/7. So the more I can teach them in advance, then I'm preparing them, I'm equipping them. So when they're out, they'll know what to do. Let me talk about a couple other skills. Safety is an issue during breaks, okay? We want our kids to be safe. So we might want to teach the skill of reporting your whereabouts, right?
Mm.
Because they need to tell their parents, hey, mom, I want to go play with Johnny down the street. Is that okay? I just want to let you know, he's 2 houses down. Here's the phone number. Things like that to keep them safe. And guess what? That's going to help parents too and make parents trust them more too. So reporting whereabouts is a great social skill. Here's another one, resisting peer pressure. Resisting peer pressure. When they're out and about, kids are going to try to get them to do things. Hey, let's go ahead and push this kid down. Let's go ahead and start bullying this kid. Let's go ahead and, you don't worry about your mom. Get out the house and go do this and go shoot hoops with me. You don't have to tell mom. No, we want to teach them how to resist that because that can be enticing. Some kids are like, if I don't do it, I won't have a friend. Resisting peer pressure can be as simple as this. Step 1, look at that kid who tells you to get out the house, have a firm voice and say, no, no way, I'm not doing that. It might be as simple as that. Look at them, calm voice, and say no. Sometimes students just don't know how to do that. That's how I resist that. Yeah, I want to do it, but I'm not getting myself in trouble. So sometimes we need to kind of walk through and talk to our kids about that. Here's another idea. You might have one kid that you don't have to worry about them resisting peer pressure, but there's another kid that's kind of you're concerned about them. So I might individualize and customize it too as I'm teaching skills. I might put them into little groups and teach skills as needed. Because I'm going to try to think of everything they're going to need over the break and teach them some skills and help them. Last one I want to talk about with social skills is how to make and maintain friends. That's a great time to make new friends. And there's social skills called how to choose appropriate friends. I don't want to make friends with that bully. I don't want to be with this kid who's trying to get me in trouble. So those social skills you can teach this kid who might be a little green and they might need a little help. And you can guide them as to how to make good friends, how to make the best friends. So there's so many. I just really, guys, I'm telling you, if you don't have that book, Teaching Social Skills and to Youth, I really recommend that you get it. It answers everything, any question you may need, and it really sets your students up for success. So those are some of the social skills that I would recommend. There's many, many more in there, Tim, but those are, yeah. So I don't know if anybody has a comment about that or another skill that you might think that might be more appropriate that you might need to teach. If you do, you can put that in the chat box also.
That was so good, Alesia. And we'll, as people are
entering
things in, yep, as people are putting things in the chat, I want to mention you can use this also as an activity for your students. So, you can, if Alesia mentioned earlier, like, hey, you may have one or two students in mind, but you want to teach to the whole class.
Yeah.
But what you could do is after teaching to the whole class, you could say, all right, Johnny, my challenge to you over this break is to document every time you used a social skill instead of acting out. Or every time, and kind of set it as a challenge. Like, hey, I want to see when you come back from winter break, how many times did you purposely use a social skill?
I love it.
And so set it up kind of as a challenge. And then that way I can say, hey, they took that ball away from me at basketball, but here's how I dealt with it instead of lashing out how I normally would have dealt with. Right. So
Tim,
that might be a good idea.
Yeah, it gives them a purpose. And I saw some good stuff in the chat box. Somebody said, how do you deal with envy? I think we have some social skills in that book I talked about that will address that. And it will give you the specific steps to introduce and share with your students. And I would have them practice that too. Do it by way of a lesson plan so they're ready to go and they'll know how to deal with it. Someone mentioned restorative practices, and I like that. One thing I noticed about restorative practices, it goes so well with the Boy Scout model. I look at restorative practices as one like, what is it? It's kind of like the foundation, but the Boys Town social skills really give them specificity as to, like, for instance, here's an example, how to make an apology. Because with restorative practices, they got to kind of fix things. They got to right the wrong. So I have to apologize. I have to, I want to disagree appropriately instead of telling a kid, you're stupid, that's dumb. I want to listen to them, share my side and disagree, but I want to do it appropriately. So Boys Town has a lot of good social skills that just goes really nice with those restorative practices. I just want to throw that in there because I saw someone mention that.
No, that's very good. Did you have any other ideas there on that topic of social skills, Alesia?
Oh, that was pretty much it with social skills, because I mentioned a few, but like I said in the book, there's so many, like someone asked about envy. So please look at that and go through there. I think it will really set you guys up for success. And talk to us. I think Jackson put something in the chat box about, if you're interested in that book. It's just, I'm telling you, I keep that book I have it right here with me right now. I keep that book with me all the time. But I did have some safety tips and some things to share about how to help parents out too.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to talk about, sometimes we need to share some things with parents and help them out too. So hopefully you got a relationship that you can talk to your parents and kind of give them a few tips. Here's one thing, and especially if they're working with small kids, I would make sure, and these are common sense things, but sometimes we need to remind folks of, like, if you got kids going out during the winter break, bundle them up. Don't let them go out with a little t-shirt on or whatever. We don't want them to get sick. So we want them to stay safe during the winter break. Bundle them up. If they're going outside to play, if they're 8 or younger, as parents, we know we need to make sure we're monitoring the kids. We don't want to just let them, okay, go outside and have a good time. They're going out in the street, they're going out doing things that might get them hurt, or we know stranger danger. Somebody might be driving by. Here's a little kid outside playing, and we don't want them snatched up. We don't want to scare folks, but we just want to remind parents and give them some tips to make sure they keep kids away from the roads, keep them away from the streets. Because another thing, being close to the streets, like I said, I'm not trying to scare anyone, but I know I've heard things, if kids are by the street, this car pulls up and snatch them up and put them in the car. We don't want those things happening. Another thing, parents, we want to remind parents to do is to winterize your home. Think about, let's check the thermostat. One of the worst things to happen, these are just things to think about during the winter break. What a horrible thing to happen Christmas morning. It's freezing cold. We're like, oh my God, I'm so cold. Everything's out. So maybe start checking on some things, checking things out. And if they don't have the finances to do that, there's other places like resources, the Salvation Army. There's different places people can call to get help with utilities and stuff like that. We just want to make, so if you got a relationship with the parents and you feel good enough that you can talk to them about some things, please talk to them, because we're talking about kids here. And we want to make sure, and also making sure that food, there's pantries around. There's places that can really help them. And so we want to make sure, if you know about a kid individually and there's a situation where the parents can't afford something, maybe pull that parent to the side and offer some help. So those are some things to do. And I was thinking some other resources that we have at Boys Town. Some of you may be aware of this, but we have a common sense parenting classes. So for some parents that are interested, we can help teach them some social skills and some strategies to help their children, because we're helping them in class. But how nice is it for them also to get that same information when they get home, how to follow instructions. And I see Jackson's putting something in the box too about common sense parenting classes. That's so important. I've seen parents say, hey, I'm so glad you guys taught me this. Now I know how to praise my kids more, because I was so busy fussing and yelling at them that I wasn't catching them being good. So now that I'm watching them and letting them know I see them doing good things, my kids are getting better. I'm getting better. I'm feeling better about things. So it's a win-win situation, guys. Another thing I want to share is the Boys Town Hotline. Some of you may be familiar with that, but that's an excellent resource for not only parents, but students. And the Boys Town Hotline, the number is 1-800-448-3000. 1-800-448-3000. You can call that number 24/7. You can call Christmas morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, and guess what? A real person will be on the phone. A real person will be there to answer any questions. Parents might, I'm saying parents and students, but guess what? Educators, you can use that also. You might know a student or a parent, and you might say, oh, I don't know what to do now. I've tried multiple strategies. And you might call the Boys Town Hotline and ask them. They're experts in the field, and you can keep everything confidential. They're there to help you. Again, educators, parents. A student might say, I don't know what to do. My parents are out all the time. I don't know what to do. I'm babysitting my kids, my sisters and brothers, and I need a break, So students can use that hotline too. Boys Town Hotline, 1-800-448-3000. Has anybody heard of the Boys Town Hotline? Have anybody, won't ask you even used it, or did you know about it? I'm just curious. In the chat box, let me know, because I would love for you to have that as a resource. Also, if you want some hotline cards, we can hook you up with that, and we can give you free cards so you can hand those out to the parents, you can hand them out to students, and you can have them for yourself as a resource. So I just want to help not only students, but parents. I want to help them too. And I want to help you educators also. Let's see.
I don't want to skip, Alicia, I don't want to skip past that too quickly, because I do just want to emphasize how absolutely amazing our hotline is, and what a resource that is. And you did such a good job at it. I also want to go back real quick. You were mentioning the tips that we can give parents And we can approach it the same way we did when we're teaching the social skills in the classroom. You don't want to just maybe pinpoint that one family or that one parent that needs
Right.
the help. But I had an educator show me, she has an email that's kind of going out to all the parents. And in that email is talking about winter breaks, but then she also has links to, and you mentioned it, but links to local food pantries, or
Yes.
there are some programs that still do lunches
Yes.
during the breaks. And so putting those links in there.
Absolutely.
But sending that out to everyone, and that way again,
Yes.
we all have pride, and so just sending that out as she does it every winter break, and I love that. So
Yes, I
um
love that.
yeah,
Yes, the more
absolutely.
I love that idea because the more that we can just, because we're all a family. We are all a family. One person may have one need and another person may have a different need. But as we're doing things, we want to make sure we're thinking about people who do have pride. And we know that. And I'm preaching to the choir because you're educators, you know. But it would be nice if we would just have a list of resources. We just send it out to everybody. And then if they don't need it, great. If they need it, it's a great resource. And let them know they can contact you anytime. And we're here for you too. I know this is a quick webinar, but we want to let you know that Boys Town is here for you. It might be some questions that you may have that we didn't have time to answer today. We want to be a resource for you guys. So you can call us, you can contact us. And do you want me to give my email? I can give my email out.
Yeah, absolutely. You can share that, and we can put it in the chat here as well.
Jackson, if you don't mind, it's alicia.montgomery@boystown.org. We want to be a wealth of resources for you because I know this is a quick webinar, but there's other things that we just didn't have time to talk a lot about, but there
Well,
might be
before
something we want to go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad that you're sending your email out there, and definitely reach out, but not just the hotline. Let's talk. There's another resource for young people.
Your life, your
Talk,
voice.
yeah, talk about that a little bit, Alicia. What is that?
Yeah, that is a way for teenagers in particular, and it goes through the hotline to communicate with other teenagers, to share information. Because sometimes you know how it is, a teenager would rather talk to a peer than talk to an
Mhm.
adult. So they can write something, they can share some things that they're going through. It's been very helpful because some kids are on the edge. Some kids are thinking about, I'm just going to say it, suicide, or they have that ideation. They're thinking about things. I don't fit in. And they may talk to another fellow student that say, "Hey, I went through that too, and here's what I did." Or they might write a poem. It's just a way of empowering each other and lifting each other up and sharing. So it's very powerful. It's your life, your voice, and that's another. Did you have the email for that, Jackson? Because I don't, but I know it's through the hotline. So you
Yeah,
can call the
he put the website up there.
excellent.
Yep.
Excellent. It's another resource. And like I said, if you guys need cards, I think we have cards for that too. So if you need cards for your life, your voice, if you need cards for the Boys Town hotline, you can call that number 1-800-448-3000. Oh, and he's talking about suicide. Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
suicide hotline. Let's talk about real quickly suicide. I know that hotline. I just want to hug everybody there, and I think I need to go and give them some, Christmas presents because they have saved a lot of people, especially during the pandemic season, from committing suicide. People will
Mhm.
call in and say, "I'm done." And they have stayed there and walked through and talked to, I mean, hundreds of people they have helped to change the course of their thinking. So it's a wonderful resource. And that's a real true thing. So if you know someone who's having problems about ending it all or whatever, I'm telling you, that hotline, I don't think it's no thing they haven't heard. There's nothing new under the sun. Say 507 from suicide last year. Oh,
Wow.
awesome.
Yeah,
Thank
look at
you,
that.
Ron. Thank you. That's awesome. But
That is
yeah,
amazing.
we're here and we're family. And so we want to just work together and see whatever we can do to help our kids. And because the thing about it, at school, they got structure and predictability for the most part. When they go home, we don't know what situation is going to happen. So the more we can be proactive, the less reactive things are going to be. Like I said
No.
before, the more we can give them and practice with them. Don't just say blah, 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 blah. talk about it, practice it, practice those social skills. Practice and hey, if this scenario happened, what are you going to do? Have them practice it so they'll know exactly what to do in that
Yeah.
case. And I think that's going to make them feel so much better. Tim, turn it back to
I
you.
love it. Well, as we think, we're trying to stay cognizant of people's time, and obviously, we could talk about this for a long time. And I hope that everybody that's participating, and even people that are going to listen in the future, as we put this out on our social sites, I really hope that you guys grasp the meat of what Alesia brought. Really good stuff. So thank you, Alesia. I do want to take the last couple minutes, Alesia, and address our educators. Remembering that, the Christmas season, the New Year's season, these breaks, going into next semester, this is a stressful time for educators as well. We have finals, we have all of that stuff.
Yes,
And
yes,
you know as well as I do, breaks for educators aren't really breaks a lot of times.
yes.
What is something, as we close this out, what is just something, this wasn't in your notes, I didn't give you any,
Right.
what is something from Alesia that you could say to our educators here as we approach this break?
That's easy because I'm going to tell you what I do. I travel, guys, all over the country. In the last 6 months, I was gone almost every week. It's crazy. But I realize we have to have some self care, first of all. You might have different things for self care. Right now, it's kind of cold, but when it was during the summertime, I would go out on my big deck. I would put my feet up and have a glass of tea or lemonade. One thing I do and one thing I stick to is I get massages. Everybody got different things they do, but whatever helps you, what I said, whatever floats your boat. What floats my boat is getting a massage. I'm telling you, and or just spending some quiet time, listen to music. This is the Christmas season. You might want to have some soft music on, Christmas music. Watch a funny show. Sometimes even my husband like to watch the Hallmark Channel. Yeah, I'm gonna tell on him. Watch these Christmas shows, but you find your niche, whether it's doing things, doing crafts, going out with friends, going to the coffee shop. Sometimes I call a girlfriend up, say, girl, let's go to Starbucks. Let's have a cup of coffee. Let's just talk about just some fun things. No work, no whatever, but something. How's your family? Let's get together and bake. Find your niche and do something because you guys, you are rock stars. You work, so I always say, my hat goes off to you. You work so hard. So find something like that to do. Whatever you like to do, make the time. You have to make the time and put it on your calendar because you know what? If you don't, you won't do it. Take some time. Be selfish. Take some time for yourself because if you're not together, how can you help someone else? And you want to be ready when you come back from the break also to help your students. So take that time, whatever it looks like, whether it's getting a massage, whether it's putting your feet up, listening to music, getting with your friends, whatever it takes, spending some time alone, praying, whatever it is, you do you. And that's going to help you be a better person at the end of the winter break so you can help your students.
I love it. Thank you. And then Vivian wrote in there, good information. We never think about how we can recharge during the downtime. And that's true, right? So
Yes.
and obviously, it's just kind of in our DNA. We want to take care of our young people and help them out. But you're right, Alesia, if we're not taking care of us, if we're not coming back with, a mindset ready to go and recharged, then we're not really helping anybody. So I love that.
One thing I'm going to say before I leave, I just thought about it. Let's try to also give our kids something to do that's for the greater good. Like, for instance, they may go next door and help an elderly person, pick some things up out of yards, bring a present in their house, bake some cookies and take it over there. It's also teaching them to have empathy and care for others. Because, we live in a selfish generation. And we can teach our kids to do something for the greater good for someone else, to volunteer. It's going to help them to be better citizens and better kids when they grow up. So that's another thing that will help with boredom for sure. And it's going to help them that they can share when they get back some things they did to help somebody else. I just want to share that.
No, that's great. That is so great. And honestly, if anybody has anything they want to throw in the chat here as we close, but we've come to an end of our time, and we like to keep these short because they're just in the middle of the day, and we don't want to take up too much time. But for everybody that participated, we will be sending out an email with some information, and And then this video here will be out on our social sites. So please take a look at that. And again, reach out. You have Alesia's email. You have our hotline and our phone number. So please reach out if we can at all be a resource. And get that book. That's a great book. So Alesia, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Really do appreciate it. I know you're busy over there at Holy Name, but thank you so much for stopping in today and talking to us.
Thank you. God bless you guys. Y'all take care. Thank
All
you
right,
so
thank
much.
you.
Thanks, Lon. Thanks all you guys, Vivian, everybody that was online. Appreciate you.
Yes, thank you.
Bye
All
now.
right, guys.
Take
Take
care,
care.
guys. Bye-bye.